White House strategy for dealing with illegal immigration. A Democratic Congressman, Luis Gutierrez out of Illinois, reportedly saying that he drafted a memo to the White House explaining how to go around Congress and push through backdoor amnesty for millions of illegals. Have a listen here.
The President of the United States said it to me and said to others. I can't get anything legislatively done in the Congress of the United States. So let's begin to look at avenues that present themselves where we can use administrative action.
So if true, what does that mean? Joe Walsh, Republican congressman from Illinois, just introduced legislation this week that relates to this issue. And sir, good morning and welcome back here. He sits on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Before we get to what you did this week, what do you believe is the agenda here?
The Obama administration bill, I think, has been pretty clear that their agenda is amnesty. They promised comprehensive illegal immigration reform when they came into office. Clearly, the president politically knows that that's not acceptable, and we're seeing the same old pattern. When he can't get something done legislatively, he does it by executive fiat. He's done that in other arenas, and it sure seems like with this latest directive with ICE last year, to only apprehend and pull over illegal immigrants who pose a national security risk and ignore all the others, that's amnesty by executive order. And, Bill, the other troubling thing is...
But before you go to the next point,
go ahead.
You have, what, 11 to 15 illegals in this country, or whatever the figure is? Seems like nobody's quite sure. Given the manpower you have at your disposal, would it not seem smart to go after those that would pose a danger to the public?
Well, look, federal law requires local law enforcement to work with the feds when picking up illegals, and it doesn't matter who those illegals are. I mean, they're required to enforce this law, and by this directive, this president now is instructing his department to ignore the vast majority of illegal immigrants, Bill, that are picked up. I mean, that's going against federal law.
There was also a political statement, if you listen to what he said, and that is that you're not going to get anything through Congress, so this is your best route. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Bill, that's just, it's so troubling because he's acknowledging that the American people are against what he's doing because he won't go through the typical legislative will of the people process. So he's going to try to do it around the will of the people. We've seen him do this when he couldn't get cap and trade passed. He then sent his EPA out to direct executive order after executive order trying to get cap and trade vis-a-vis, the executive department. He's doing the same thing here with immigration policy. And the other troubling thing I was going to mention was we were told last year when this directive came out that this was advised by and written by ICE professionals. It sure sounded from Congressman Gutierrez that outsiders, himself and others, drafted this directive. This administration has a dangerous habit of farming this stuff out.
Two things I need to get to quickly. We just talked to Gutierrez's office, and they tell us this is all old news. Is it?
No, it's not old. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, this is a directive of last year which has changed the policy of ICE. It's not old news. It's current news.
All right. You just had a piece of legislation that deals directly with sanctuary cities. And those are American cities where it's either been stated or implied that if you are illegal living in that city, the authorities won't go after you. What does your amendment do on that front?
Again, common sense, Bill. It's been federal law for 20 years that local law enforcement is required to communicate with federal officials when they pick up illegals. Sanctuary cities, by definition, don't cooperate. In fact, they work against federal law, and yet we've continued to give them the resources to enforce these rules.
And you want to cut off those resources, which I assume means money. Is that right?
Which means money. If they're in defiance of federal law, you've got the entire state of Oregon, which passed legislation prohibiting local law enforcement, prohibiting them from cooperating with the feds. Why do we continue to give the state of Oregon or the city of San Francisco, which is a refuge for illegals.
Okay.
Why do we give them the money to enforce these laws? It makes no sense.
It passed in the House. We'll see if it has legs on the other side of the Hill.
Yes.
Joe Walsh, thank you
Yep.
for your time out of Illinois today.
Thank